Hey guys, and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Necromancer in Season 4. Today I've got a big build update for you with a main question in mind. What are most people going to be doing right now? Well, probably both the minimum pit levels to get your masterwork on your current gear. In many cases, that's just going to be the first 4 levels to get that first, blue proc. Or maybe you're even going to 8 levels to get the second one. But I don't think most people are going to 12 because we're still working on our gear. We're still getting greater affixes. Committing to something at 12 out of 12 it's very expensive. So what you're really doing right now is farming gear, your ideal sets. Maybe you're hunting specific uniques and aspects for the top rolls. Maybe you're trying to get 3 right affixes and then the tempers in each piece. Maybe you're where I'm at right now, hunting greater affixes to take what was already really good, but boost the power of it, while also trying to get uber uniques. All of that comes down to this then, tormented boss killing, and specifically duriel and andariel. So what's going to be ideal right now, I think it's the ability to crush those new much harder bosses very quickly so that you're able to generate a ton of loot and get what you're looking for. So it's a boss killer build that can also handle pits very well, because that's what I need right now, and I imagine that's probably what you want right now. The result of this build then is that I'm landing close to 2 billion hits. It's actually a choice on my part not to be hitting harder, but instead more consistently and more often. Also, that's not relying on holy bolts, that exploit or bug, by the way. In this dummy footage, the bolts are not triggering for this hit. Obviously, with the bolts bug, anything and everything dies. That's how we saw a 42 billion hit from Vega recently. Surely that's going to get hotfixed. It isn't really anything to do with Necromancer or your build. And if that does get hotfixed, well, this build remains secure. You can still land up to these 2 billion hits, and then it's just over. And the thing is, you're able to hit them back to back. With this setup, you're able to get 2 bursts off during every Army of the Dead, which is pretty incredible. I'm smashing bosses, solo, in a group, whatever. Because of that, I'm able to maximize my time hunting the drops. I've already got my grandfather uber unique. I'm now hunting Shaco the helmet and other good ones just in case. Obviously, it needs to be able to deal with pits though. For that, you'll need to be clearing above tier 61 at least. And with this build, I'm clearing tier 90s with no problem. I'm barely even thinking about damage reduction currently, and because of how it's performing at this point, I'm pretty confident I'm going to be able to make a very good pit pushing build, which is probably going to be my next project. So let's highlight a couple of the important things I've changed to make this boss crusher build. And also, as a bonus, I am not currently using any uber uniques, so you should be able to run this too. Firstly, a really important change for boss killing is the inner calm aspect. This means I'm dealing 10% times increased damage flat out while I've got this, but it goes to 30% times because it triples after I stand still for 3 seconds. So you can see how my attack power just standing here in town is 30k. As I stand still for 30 seconds, it suddenly shoots up by about 5k, 6k, nearly 36,000, and we also have this icon to show that it's active. So with this, obviously you want to be standing still. In my duriel kills, that's pretty easy. I just find a nice spot and then just go to town. You'll also notice that I'm not using blight. I'm using corpse explosion. Corpse explosion can be enhanced to become, yes, a shadow damage effect. This leaves a blight pool on the ground and that begins triggering shadow blight. Our main damage aspect, of course, is blighted. When our shadow blight triggers 10 times, we get a 6-second buff of 240% times increased damage. What most people are doing for good reason is using blight. This generates their shadow damage, and then when it's enhanced to supernatural, it's also giving them a 20% times increased damage to those affected by it. So that's a no-brainer. The problem is that blight costs a lot of essence, and it's a small pool they have to stand still in, and it ticks quite slowly. Meanwhile, this blighted version of corpse explosion is ticking way faster, and also you can absolutely spam tens and hundreds of these out through a fight, maintaining your 10 stacks of shadow blight incredibly fast and incredibly consistently. I want to credit my fellow Necromancer, the Chicken Wing, aka Kaylee, in some of our footage, for this great idea. They made this suggestion to me with the idea that what is better, 240% times more damage all the time, or 240% times and then another 20% times, but much rarer. It's just not even competitive for overall DPS. So I could have shown you guys in the intro or whatever, like a technically bigger number, like maybe 2.5 billion or something, whatever. But this is just significantly more consistent and overall more DPS. So I strongly recommend the corpse explosion swap. I've also made different changes in the Paragon, like say our first glyph. We're now running Amplify instead of Control. Control is giving us a big damage bonus, like double the effect of Amplify, but they have to be crowd controlled, slowed or stunned. This doesn't work against tormented bosses until they stagger, which might happen in a fight, but might not, and honestly we're killing them too quick anyway. So I'll rather have the consistent damage increase. That's why we've made that swap. Also, Also, on my amulet, we're now running unyielding instead of on a ring. Previously, I was running reanimation on my amulet for more consistent damage. Well, if I want to kill everything in one combo where I'm able to do 2 column slams within that window, I want as much damage as possible. So having unyielding on the amulet is actually much more effective for that reason. Also, I've made a pretty major change when I'm playing against certain bosses. There is this skill tree bonus here, this enhancement to Army of the Dead Supreme, raises your skeleton warriors and mages on use. This is trash and a waste of a point unless you're dealing with certain enemies. For example, tormented andariel that we're all farming right now. If you've been hunting her like me, you know that it's really annoying when she just steps out of the fight. At the same time that she's gone, there's lightning balls, blasts of beams of lasers, a fire thing spiraling around, and it's dealing damage to your minions because they're not dodging the mechanics like you are. Then your DPS is trash when she comes back. You have to work your way back up. Then she leaves again. You lose your minions again. It's terrible. If you run Supreme, you're able to instantly revive them when she comes back. There are situations, say in pit pushing, where this is really relevant too. So this is a swap that I make at times, depending on what I'm doing and what I'm about to fight. Sometimes it's really good. I also want to highlight the fact that you should be using the Holy Bolts Elixir, the new one. This is what the exploit or bug is happening, and you don't have to do anything. You literally just turn it on, and then occasionally you just get like billions of damage randomly. It's absolutely busted, and every minion necromancer should have it on at all times when they're doing relevant content. Pit pushing, boss killing, whatever. Again, I expect them to remove this though. This build does not need that in any way. It's just obviously you should run it while you can. Okay, first up we have the Book of the Dead. It is still the Reapers with upgrade 2 because we're going to want loads of corpses. Plus with Gravekeeper in the Paragon it means more damage. And apparently there's a bug right now where you're also getting the effect of upgrade 1 randomly. So hey, free CDR potentially. For the skeletal mages it's still Shadow. It just provides the biggest damage increase. Also we want Shadow mages because they're going to generate stacks of Shadow Blight occasionally. Golem, it's Blood, upgrade 2. That is absolutely what you want for max DPS. Though you should use upgrade 1 if you're pit pushing and struggling to survive, but it is a DPS loss. Next, we have the skill tree. We're not using a basic, so 2 points anywhere. It doesn't matter. We have to spend 4 points here because of that. So it's 3 points in Hued Flesh and 1 anywhere. It doesn't matter. We're picking up Corpse Explosion and making sure to go Blighted so we get the shadow damage over time from those explosions. We want 3 out of 3 Skeletal Warrior Mastery for sure. 1 point into Grim Harvest to get to Fueled by Death. And then we have 2 points in Spiked Armor. This is very important. You want over 9,320 armor. That's the armor cap. So this is a great way to cheat your way over that because it's just an incredible thing. So as I lose 1 point of this and lose 5% times armor, I go under that cap. So it's playing a game basically. Up to 3 points should be in here to get you over the armor cap because you want to min-max your armor on your gear, running the minimal amount to be over that cap and the minimal amount in spiked armor to maintain it. On the next tree though, we have Decrepify upgraded to Abhorrent. This is giving us nice CDR so we can slam more often. We're cursing everything with that, so amplified damage, Death's Embrace for the extra close damage and damage reduction, bit of movement speed from Death's Approach, nice to have, not required. You could free these points up if you really wanted. Obviously maxing out Skeletal Mage Mastery, coming down to Corpse Tendrils, maxing that out for max CDR so that you're able to maintain vulnerable and build up stuns and staggers as fast as possible. Obviously we want Plague Corpse Tendrils to generate vulnerable. 3 points in Necrotic Carapace, we're getting lots of Fortify from that. I've got 3 points spare, so I put them in Gruesome Mending. It's 30% more healing from all sources. It's just really nice. On the ultimate tree, it's 1 point in Army of Dead and then we take it to Prime. And as I've explained, you want to take 1 more point and put it into Supreme when you're facing a boss or an enemy that's killing your minions in like a downtime phase, such as specifically Tormented andariel. Obviously maxing out Golem Mastery, Inspiring Leader, and Hellbent Commander, and our key passive is Shadow Blight. Right, that brings us to the Paragon where I'm going to be really quick. Here is my starting board. This is how I place my points. We don't need extra health really because this isn't a pit pushing build. And the first glyph, as I've said, is now Amplify instead of Control. This is going to be a 10% times increased damage because we're cursing everything and keeping those curses, and it's always going. It's really nice. Coming up to the second board, it's still Cult Leader, where of course we've got Dead Razor because it's going to enhance the relevant minion perks or buffs. This is how I spend my points to achieve that and the path that I take on this board. Next, we have our third board, which is still Hulking Monstrosity, the major increase to golem damage, and it's still corporeal for me. This gives you a big bonus to magic nodes within range, so specifically golem damage nodes get that bonus. It's really good. Also, I come down to Frenzied Golem for the golem attack speed as a priority. The damage is nice though, and I still dip into Borrowed Strength on the way up to our next board. Our next board is of course still Scent of Death for the massive damage reduction that provides, the very rare damage increase, and the glyph is still of course Golem on this board. board to get 54 willpower. That is over 200% increased golem damage. And then because it's active, obviously the 25% multiplier. This is how I spend my points, like so. And then we're going to come over to the next board, which is Flesh Eater, giving us that 40% times increased damage for 6 seconds after consuming 5 corpses. This is important for boss killing because I kind of get 3, maybe 4 stacks killing random mobs before starting a boss fight. Then I open the fight, do my rotation, proc Flesh Eater, and smash multiple times during that window. On the Flesh Eater board, we have the Gravekeeper glyph. This is giving us that major damage increase for every close corpse. It also gives a bonus to rare nodes within range. So I'm getting extra resistance to all elements and damage to elites, which is nice. We work our way to the top of this board, where obviously we come through Stifle, meaning extra crit strike damage, which is good, to our final board, which is just a dump board for a glyph. So as usual, that's Bloodbath. We are getting Fortify through our skill tree, so why not get more damage while fortified? It's also a very good dex board. So of course we have a dex glyph here, which we use Essence. That's nearly 200% increased critical strike damage, and then also extra crit strike damage to those that are not healthy. So that's the board and how we've laid it out for boss killing. Right, this brings us to the gear section. I cut this into 4 parts through aspects, affixes, tempering, and masterworking. I hope that's the most understandable way, but if you guys would like me to do it all at once as I go through each piece to like max detail, could do that, but I think sectioning it just is easier to refer to. In any case, here's the aspects I'm running. We're still running a cult. Of course, we want more warriors and mages. I have that on my helmet. On the chest, I've got hardened bones for the 20% DR. That's just permanent. Fantastic. That could also be on your legs. Again, those can swap around. For an offensive slot on my gloves, in this case, I've got reanimation. Permanent damage increase for the minions being alive for 10 seconds. On the legs, it is of course still blood getters. A 70% increased effectiveness for skeletal priests on us. So as we press it to empower the minions, that empowers us, which in turn, you know, those stats go to the minions as well. On the boots, we have Aphotic. Our priests now empower the warriors to also deal shadow damage. We don't care about the damage per se, but it helps generate shadow blight, which is going to proc our blighted aspect, which is obviously on a 2-hand weapon for the maximum effect of that. Also, I'm still using a scythe. The reason for that is because they have higher base damage per hit compared to a sword, but it's not the end of the world to use a sword. For the amulet then, I now have Unyielding Commander on the amulet instead of a ring, as I've mentioned. Again, this is because it gives us way more burst during the Army of Dead window, which is where we want to get ideally 2 golem slams off during that burst window. Having that be way more effective is obviously phenomenal. We're still running Frenzied Dead on one of the rings. Lastly, the final slot is Inner Calm, what I'm using specifically for boss killing. Obviously, I'm able to use this in pits and stand still, but that is risky. This is for boss killing specifically, and it's 30% times increased damage for standing still for 3 seconds. That is incredibly easy to do when boss killing, tormented boss killing, whatever, is absolutely phenomenal. So that's the aspects. Let's now go over the affixes. Again, from the top down. On my helmet, I've got Intel, Max Life, and Armor. This is where you could also get cooldown reduction, which I would recommend instead of armor, assuming you're able to reach the armor cap in a different way. But I need it on my helm to actually reach it, so I've got that there. On the chest, this is your most important piece. Also offensively, chests can have the Golem Mastery affix on it, and as you can see, I've got +4. Each level of that means an extra 25% times increased damage for my Golem, where most of my damage is coming from. So you must have +2 Golem Mastery on your chest, or your chest is worthless in a build like this. Outside of that, Intelligence, Max Life, obviously good. On the gloves, we have Attack Speed, Crit Strike Chance. You must have that on your offensive slots. Why do you need attack speed? Well, if we take a look at what attack speed I've got right now, we have a 31% bonus from me and a 35% bonus from the minions. Together, that's over 60% and under 80%. Why does that matter? In your Paragon, under the Cult Leader board, we have the legendary node Cult Leader. This is a 30% times increased damage for every 20% of attack speed bonus the minions have, capping at 100%. So every 20% that I have, that's another 30% times damage. So I get 1 from my attack speed bonus, 1 from the minion attack speed bonus, and then 1 more from the combined leftover numbers. So that's 90% times increased damage. With Frenzy Dead active, that's another 45%, which pushes it over the 100% cap. So that's 150% times increased damage for my minions, which is absolutely insane. So attack speed, Really important on all of the slots you can get it on. Critical strike chance, you want as much crit strike chance as you can get. I'm at 44% right now, and that's because I don't have it on my amulet, and I'm really working on that. This is also why you would run the Grasping Veins aspect on, say, one of these slots. The crit strike bonus from that is something like an extra 25%. That's really good, but the crit strike damage doesn't seem to work on the minions, so that's really not good. If I'm able to get over, say, 40%, I'm happy to get away without it, but if you're below that, I would still suggest you run Grasping Veins. Other than that, we have Skeletal Mage Mastery on the gloves. You want that on every piece you can get as the third slot. So as you can see on my legs, I've also got those levels there. Again, Intelligence Max Life on the defensive slot. On the boots, Intel Max Life and Movement Speed, that's the goal. On the weapon, we've got Intel Max Life and damage, flat damage. On the amulet, we've got max life, attack speed, and Hellbent Commander. What this optimally would be crit strike chance, attack speed, and Hellbent Commander. But that's what I'm working on right now. For our rings, I've got maximum life, attack speed, and crit strike chance. Okay, so tempering, very quick. For your slots that can have it, so that's your helm, your chest, your gloves, your legs, and your boots, you want 3 levels in Corpse Tendril size, and you want 2 levels in Decrepify size. This is for ease of use, and that's how I've got that set up. In my helmet, I've also got max life. In my chest, I've got total armor, again, to just push me over the armor cap. On my gloves, it's an offensive slot, so I go for golem damage, top priority. In my legs, max life. In my boots, movement speed of a general kind is good. I got this roll for after killing elite. It'd be better if it was general movement speed, but this is fine. On my weapon, it's golem damage and minion attack speed. That's how I'm reaching this amount. Then we have jewelry. We want golem damage and golem active cooldown reduction. We want to be able to get 2 golem slams off per burst window, and this is how it's done. So golem active CDR on the amulet and both rings. And then for the damage, it's golem damage, golem damage, golem damage. For Masterworking, the most important thing you possibly do is go straight to your chest and target this. Bring this to 4 out of 4 like I did today. Fail to hit the golem mastery increase. Reset for 5 mil. Try again. Fail. Try again. Fail. Spend 70 million gold on this, which is what I did, and eventually reach golem mastery higher levels. Your alternative option, and ideally long-term thing, is to get a greater affix chest that gets the greater affix hit on golem mastery, and then you masterwork it even higher. And then after that, it's attack speed, crit strike chance, golem damage, golem CDR, and Hellbent Commander. And obviously everything on your weapon. Oh, and because I forgot to do that during the live recording, it's just maximum life or rubies in your armor. It's still the sapphires or vulnerable damage in your weapon. And then it's whatever you actually need defensively to reach 70% resistance in everything. I'm at the point now where I can just happily put resistance to all elements with diamonds in there and just hit what I need to. All right, so here's a quick live commentary to show you how to do the burst window. There's quite a lot to keep track of. As my minions are attacking, some of them are dealing shadow damage, right? Like my warriors and my mages. So I'm getting this stacking buff of Shadow Blight. Once this hits 10, I'm going to get the 10 stack buff. This is a major damage buff. So as that's going, that's when I need to smash. Next, we have this increase of damage from Corpse Eater. So when this hits 5 stacks, that's another big damage window. So let's put it to 5. So you see how I can just sit at 4. Maybe I could prep this before a boss fight like I normally do. And I put it at 4 intentionally. Then we start the fight, I get going, and I intentionally pop it. So now it's 5 out of 5, massive damage bonus, and this one too. Then we want to stack that at the same time as the Shadow Blight buff. To do that very easily then, I can just press Corpse Explosion, because that generates Shadow Blight. It's got shadow damage on the ground. And as I press each Corpse Explosion, I'm getting those stacks. So I can get both to their max, and that's the burst window right there. But at the same time, I need to make sure that the enemy is decrepified. I need to make sure that my minions are buffed with the Priestess. I need to make sure the enemy is vulnerable with the Corpse Tendril. And then I pop Army of the Dead, and then I start spamming Golem. So let's give it a go. Let's decrepify, get those stacks going. That's 5 out of 5. There we go. Let's Corpse Tendril, decrepify, buff up, then Army of Dead, and then slam with the Golem. Obviously, I was a bit slow to explain that, but basically that's what you're doing. You're building everything up, popping Army of the Dead, and smashing with the Golem as many times as you can during that window. When I'm really on it, I'm able to slam with the Golem twice in that window, and that's where the biggest burst basically lives. But there you have it. That's my current best boss killing build for Minion Necromancer. I'm obviously crushing with hits right now, and I see very common 1 to 2 billion hits per burst window. Maybe even multiple in one go when I really hit it right. And again, that's without the Holy Bolts bug. And then with it, obviously, it's over, everything just dies. So I really recommend this build during our current phase of gearing up and all that. I hope this video has helped you and was detailed in the ways you needed it to be. For now though, I'll go work on my pit build next, and until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.